Welcome to the Manna at the Tap, a podcast of Tapestry Ministries. It is Tuesday, January the 7th, 2025. The podcast is a daily Bible reading from the Revised Common Lectionary, and the Tapestry community calls the reading Manna. We explore it together. It is the spiritual nourishment our souls crave and the sustenance we need to nurture our spiritual growth. I'm Gloria, a fellow traveler with you on a spiritual journey. Together, we can share insights and interpretations from the daily biblical lectionary reading, which will enrich our spiritual lives. Today's lectionary reading is from the Old Testament book of Daniel, named after its author. It is the story of Daniel's life and times living in Babylon as a Jewish exile from Israel. It all started when the king of Babylon invaded Israel. His first strategy was to choose a group of young elite men, including members of the royal family, to send them to the cultural center of Babylon to be educated. Daniel and three of his teenage friends were chosen in the first of three deportations carried out by the Babylonians. Although Daniel and his three friends were forced to live in Babylon, far from family and their homeland, under the rule of a pagan king, the book of Daniel makes it clear that to Daniel, the true God is the supreme ruler over heaven and earth. Today's lectionary reading is Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 to 19. It is the story of the troubling dream of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. He woke up from his sleep and had forgotten the dream and why it had troubled him. He summons the wise men of the royal court, those who can interpret dreams, to tell him what the dream was and the interpretation of the dream. The wise men said it was impossible and suggested to the king that if he told them the dream, they would interpret it. Their words infuriated the king, who threatened to cut them into pieces and make them and their houses ash. However, if they could tell and interpret the dream, they would be rewarded with gifts and great honor. The sentence of doom fell on all the wise men of Babylon, including Daniel and his three friends, even though they were unaware of the troubling dream and the death sentence on their lives. It was not until the captain of the king's guard came looking for them to kill them. When King Nebuchadnezzar first met Daniel and his three friends, after they had defied the king's orders and chosen their own diet, which today we call the Daniel fast, he was impressed with them. He thought Daniel was 10 times wiser than all his other wise men. But it seemed he had forgotten about Daniel when he needed him most, in his time of panic over the forgotten and troubling dream. Daniel was a young man who lived a life of prayer and prudence. He practiced prayer, that's conversing and dialoguing with God, in all of his decision making. This resulted in him living a life filled with thanksgiving and finding favor with God. Prudence is the wisdom and know-how to deal with others. And when the captain of the king's guard came to Daniel to seize him and execute him, Daniel asked him in a calm voice, "Why is the king's decree so harsh?" Arioch, the king's guard, explained the situation to Daniel. After listening to the king's guard, Daniel went directly to King Nebuchadnezzar and asked if he could give him some time. Then he, Daniel, would return to the king with what the dream meant. Daniel then went to his own house and in the quietness of the night chatted with his three friends, telling them the whole story. He asked if they would join him in praying to God to be kind to them and to help them understand this secret so that Daniel and his friends would not be killed along with the other wise men of Babylon. During the night, Daniel had an epiphany, the insight to understand in a vision what the king's dream meant. God answered Daniel's prayer and those of his three friends, and in response, Daniel praised and thanked God. The lectionary reading tomorrow will reveal Daniel's next move. So please join us tomorrow to listen to the January 8th, 2025 podcast.